Welcome to Life Conversations with Senior Helpers, the podcast that takes you on a heartfelt journey through the art of aging gracefully. Join our hosts, Christina Chartrand and David Chandler, as they engage in candid and compassionate discussions about both the joys and challenges of growing older. Tune in to gain valuable tips, expert advice, and essential resources that empower you or your loved ones to embrace the beauty in every stage of life. Let's embark on these enlightening conversations together. Here are your hosts, David and Christina.
Hi, and welcome to Life Conversations with Christina Chartrand and
David Chandler.
Oh, so good to see everyone on today's episode. David, we have a special guest today.
Yes, we have Angie Boglino, who is the Senior National Account Manager at the Veteran Care Coordination. And Angie, we are so glad to have you today. Really excited to share during our special month of May where we're recognizing our veterans. And thank you so much for joining us today. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. We have a really good partnership, as you know, with yourselves, and you guys have such a focus on veterans, and obviously that's really important to us as well. So I really appreciate being here. So I have been with Veterans Care Coordination for about 4 years, and I work with home care agencies. And what we really are doing with those agencies is trying to make sure that all of their clients are getting all of the veteran benefits that they could receive. And the specific benefit we work with is pension with aid and attendance. So really just, it's a little known benefit. So we really try to help to educate the offices and then also serve their clients just to make sure that they are getting all the home care and all the benefits that they could be receiving.
Okay, well, Angie, tell us a little bit about this benefit, because I bet we have some listeners today that have no idea even what this is all about.
Sure. Yeah. The name of the benefit is pension with aid and attendance. And if you hear people talk about it, lots of times you'll hear them just say aid and attendance. And that is part of the benefit. It is actually a two-part benefit, pension with aid and attendance. So this is something that's there for the VA, from the VA, and it can help pay for medical expenses, one of those being home care for both veterans and their spouses and surviving spouses. So it's a really important piece of an opportunity for them to pay for home care that in many instances they would otherwise go without because they wouldn't have this funding.
What else does it pay for? Let's just say someone not interested in home care. Obviously, we love home care, but let's just say they're not. What else does it pay for?
So it is really surrounded around medical expenses.
Okay.
Oftentimes, if someone's going into, say, an assisted living facility, it could help to pay for that sort of a thing as well. But there are some certain requirements around this benefit, and that's something that we really help with because this benefit can be really cumbersome to get through. So what we're really doing with the clients at the time of screening is helping to streamline that, try to take the stress off of them. We're trying to assist them through the entire process to help determine, are they eligible for this benefit, and helping them to get all of that paperwork done. Now back to kind of what it can pay for once it's in place. That can be, home care is just a huge piece of it. But it also can be other medical expenses, like if they have medical supplies that are needed, whether those be incontinence supplies or different things along those lines. Once that benefit gets in place, there's also other things like, lift chairs, bars for their home, things that are considered a medical expense. Those are different pieces that could be paid for with this benefit as well.
That's great. That's great. So how can you find out if you're eligible? How does that work?
Sure. So, again, we partner with home care agencies. That's where most of our clients begin. They're people who are wanting home care, needing home care. Maybe they already have home care, but they're needing more, or they need more funding because they can be running out of money paying for that home care, as you well know. So we have a team here that works directly with those clients that are trying to figure out if they're eligible. There are certain criteria they have to meet for this specific benefit. One has to do with their service time, because this is considered a wartime benefit. And so we have to look at their service dates. They have to have served at least 90 days of active duty, and one of those days has to overlap a war period. So that's kind of the military piece of that criteria. Some confusion can come in sometimes with clients if they think grandpa wasn't in the war, but didn't need to be. Just one day had to overlap that war period in most cases. So that's one of the big criteria. Then another area of criteria for this benefit really has to do with finances. So just like it's a wartime benefit, it's also kind of set in place for people who would otherwise probably not be able to pay for this themselves. And so there is both asset limit. So every year that's adjusted for cost of living. So it does move around, but right now it's about $155,000 in assets. So that's a cap. Now that doesn't include their home or their car or up to 2 acres land, which is good. Those things don't count as assets for the specific VA benefit. And then the other part of finances is something that's more tied to each person. It'll look a little different with each person because it's a ratio of their medical expenses to their income. So that's the other part of the financial piece we have to look at with each client.
That must be complicated. I keep think about what do? You gather all your doctor bills and say, here they are.
Well, yeah, kind of. And it is. You're right. It can be really complicated.
No wonder.
Yes. And the other piece that really can also trick that up a little bit is that it has to be sustainable. So it has to be an expense that's going to be there every month, because that income to medical ratio has to be shown on the front end, but additionally, it has to remain through the entire lifetime of the benefit.
Does that include prescriptions? Is that included in that?
That's one of the pieces that gets very, very tricky. That can depend on exactly what their medical situation is, why that prescription is being used. Are there any other substitutes? Is it forever that they're going to be on that medication? So medication is a really tricky piece that often can't be included.
Okay.
So that's where it gets really, our screening team, it's the only thing they do. There are other veteran benefits, but we only work with this one. So our team that works with those clients to figure out if they're eligible, that's literally all they do. And so they know how to piece all of that together for that client to figure out if they're eligible, because it can also kind of change a little bit from state to state. So there's a whole lot of regulation in there to kind of determine. And really, that's why we're here, because it is such a hard benefit to manage. We have clients who come to us who have been trying to get this benefit set up. One time I heard 18 months. I've been doing this for 18 months. I can't get it. And then we kind of just come in and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. So we talk through it with them first. And then if, everything's looking aligned, then now we're going to start gaining all those documents that are needed and assist them in that application process. So I'm just, again, taking that stress off the family.
You mentioned a couple of these already, Angie, but are there any other common misconceptions that you can think of?
Yeah, I would say a couple of them are, I don't know if this specific one is necessarily a misconception, but a missed opportunity, or the spouses. Because a lot of VA benefits are there for the veterans. But this one, when the veteran passes, this benefit goes on to their surviving spouse. So that's a big missed opportunity. But another misconception is that this benefit would not be able to be stacked with other benefits. And what I mean there is, there's another VA benefit that can pay for home care, which is fantastic. It's depending on different states call it different things, usually referred to as either HHA, homemaker, chore maker. It's a benefit that veterans get. And the starting point for that is to go see their VA doctor. And then that would get the ball rolling to get some hours in place through that benefit. A lot of people either think they can't be worked together or they don't realize these are two different benefits. So
Mhm.
a client can be getting hours through that HHA benefit. And then if they also qualify for pension with aid and attendance, one is not going to get rid of the other. So they are
Okay.
going to be able to stack those hours together. So that's a huge piece of that. And that also holds true for people who get hours of home care through Medicaid.
Yep.
Pension with aid and attendance can go on top of that as well. So
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah, they can. And that's a huge piece. And that's another piece that our screening team is really looking through. So if we have a
Mhm.
Medicaid client coming in, we're figuring out eligibility. We're balancing that off of what they're getting to make sure that, you putting another benefit in place will not affect the other. But almost always, in most cases, putting pension with aid and attendance in place would not affect those other benefits. And we would make sure that that is the case before moving forward.
Hmm. That's interesting. I keep thinking about for people out there who do they ever advertise? Like, how do veterans find out about this? Like, it seems like something that's like this unknown, like little secret that no one knows about.
It is. It really is. It is a really, unfortunately, little known benefit. And again, to go back to those spouses, they're probably the most missed group because,
Hmm.
as you talk with veterans, lots of times, they're very proud, of course, as they should be. And they might
Hmm.
bring up, oh, do you have a veteran discount or something along those lines? And
Right.
so, it comes up in conversation. The spouses don't always know to bring that up. So they're a big missed group. But you're right. It is a benefit that just is not understood how it
Hmm.
can work for them, what it can pay for. And again, many, many veterans themselves don't realize this is a separate benefit
Yeah.
from what they might be getting through that HHA program.
How much do they get? So what's is there a max? How's that
There is,
work?
yeah, there is a maximum.
Hmm.
And, I kind of mentioned earlier a little bit about that's a two-part benefit. So there's
Hmm.
pension with aid and attendance total amount. So the total amount is roughly $2,300 per month for a veteran.
Wow.
Surviving spouse gets a little less. It's about $1,400 a month. And
Hmm.
then if you're a married couple, you get a little more. It's approximately $2,700 a month. So, depending on what position you're in or what status you're in,
Hmm.
that will determine the maximum. And so that again is what we're always trying to help our clients get to, that maximum amount of that benefit.
That's a lot of money. I mean, that could really seriously help somebody,
Oh,
right?
especially for these clients who, again, many times if this wasn't in place, they wouldn't be able to afford the home care.
Hmm.
And really our overarching goal is always to keep clients in their home
Hmm.
because, as you well know, that's for most people, that's where they would want to
They want to be
stay.
home.
And so
Yeah.
getting the home care in there as soon as possible makes it more likely they're going to be able to stay in their home.
Yeah, Angie, this is such an amazing benefit. I'd love to hear if you have one or two stories of veterans or their spouses or both that have been impacted by the work that you're doing.
Mhm. I would say we have, and I'm going to go to my client care team, talk a little bit about them and sing their praises because all of our clients that start care with the benefit also receive a client care rep with us. So that client
Hmm.
care rep works with them the lifetime of the benefit. So they're meeting with them regularly, making sure that they're making the most of their benefit. They're using every bit of their benefit that they have coming to them, helping them maintain eligibility. If they need supplies, sourcing those supplies for them, those medical supplies,
Hmm.
making sure everything's going good with that home care. So I really feel like we continually just get a lot of feedback from these clients and their families saying they've made a huge, huge difference. But one specific thing that comes to mind is recently we had a client who said they had been wanting to get these hearing aids for literally years, but they could not afford them. So once we got the benefit in place and we're paying for home care, and they had some of that money in their account that could have been used for some of those supplies, they got in place. And it was just a changing event.
God.
They could communicate with their family again after years. So some of those pieces, as well as on the opposite end, getting the benefit in place, kind of going back to that one that was 18 months, that was huge. People just feeling like the release of that stress of when they're trying to get home care set up for your family member or for yourself. There's so much stress there. You're trying to figure out, do we need home care? Can we afford home care? How are we going to do this? And so if you have somebody really saying, here, let me help you. We can help with this. Let's take this off of your plate. We just have so much feedback from them in terms of the weight that has been lifted.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. That must be huge. So what are some of the big things that people need to gather? I feel like there's all this paperwork and there's so much. What are some of the big things that they need to find in their house or look through paperwork for this benefit?
It varies a little bit by each person because, as the applications come together, and believe it or not, the applications start at 40 pages. Sometimes they're 100 pages long by the time you get done because, yes, depending on your own individual situation.
I would be giving up at page 3.
I know. And so that's where, depending on their own situation, what all they have going on kind of determines what all has to go in with that application. But one thing every single person will need is a DD-214. And what that is their military discharge papers. That kind of maps out, where they were when and what years they served. So we can kind of align whether or not that first piece of eligibility of their military will come together for them. So that's something everybody will need. If they don't have that, we can actually get that on their behalf. So we can file and get that in a somewhat quick order. We can get that because, some families have it and some don't have it. And, so that's not a stopper there. In terms of other documentation, again, that'll kind of, especially the financial piece really varies by every individual, but, things like marriage certificates and, if the veteran has passed a death certificate, those kind of things that would have to go along with that. But that DD-214 is a huge one that everybody's going to need.
Let's just say you're not eligible for the benefit. What other options do you give them?
Yeah, if they're not eligible, we walk through why they're not eligible so they understand that. If it's a veteran and they're not already receiving that HHA benefit, we always try to, guide them that way. Or even if they're going to get pension with aid and attendance and they're not already getting that HHA benefit, we'll also advise, hey, you really should go try to get this set up too, because they'll give you even more hours. So we do try to kind of refer them over there. Spouses, unfortunately, aren't part of that HHA program. So there's not a whole lot else out there for the spouses. So that one's a little harder, but we do try to, if we know anything in their area that might be able to help, we try to refer them over to some other programs.
Angie, could you talk about the importance of supporting our veterans and the society impacts that your service offers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's really the most important piece of it because these are earned benefits. These are things that they have coming to them and they've served our country. And so now it's time for us collectively as home care agencies and as Veterans Care Coordination to make sure that they understand the benefit and that also, they're assisted because like we said, so many of them don't have someone to help them even in the process, and it would just be too overwhelming. So just making sure that they are getting all of those things that they've already put the time in for. They have them coming to them, and now it's our time to serve them.
I love that. Angie, how can they learn more about? How can they find you? I bet we have some listeners who might want to know.
We do. It really, They would just reach out to us. If they're, going through their computer, they can just go to veteranscarecoordination.com. Really simple there. And once they get there, they would have our contact information. There's also a link where they can put in their information, and someone from that screening team would then reach out to them really pretty quickly, definitely within a day, but probably within a few hours of them. Yes. So we try to do that pretty quickly because it's, they're probably available if they just reached out and it's in the front of their mind, so we're going to try to do that within a few hours of that. The other option is they can just really call into us here, and that number is 855-380-4400. That comes right in, and anybody who answers the phone would be able to help them.
Will you repeat that number for us one more time, Angie?
Absolutely. 855-380-4400.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some of our listeners here today that are going to want to be able to investigate or take advantage of this resources that I bet a lot of people still don't know about. So this is such a valuable topic.
Well, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you shared so much knowledge with us. I know Christina and I both took away some things that we didn't know before. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really awesome. Thank you so much, Angie. Really, really great info, and really appropriate for this month for us.
Awesome. Yeah. Well,
thank you for sharing, for caring for our veterans in this way and making this benefit known and taking care of those who have taken care of us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Agreed. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Life Conversations with Senior Helpers. We hope this discussion has inspired you to embrace aging gracefully and independently. For more resources, tips, and expert insights, please visit us online at seniorhelpers.com. Stay connected, keep learning, and continue cherishing the moments that make life truly special. We're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time.